Today I am repairing a bathroom wall. You can see behind, it's already been primed, so I used a very strong primer on all the damaged walls. The tiles have been removed, and as you can see, it's taken chunks of the plaster off as well. And it's my job to come in here and make it all look pretty. So the first thing I do is prime all the walls. I gave that about an hour to tighten in and dry. Now I am mixing the undercoat plaster, bonding coat. It's the renovation plaster, some people might call it. It's an undercoat plaster that will deep fill, go in all the deep fills. I will coat the entire wall, roll it off flat, ready to have the top coat plaster on top tomorrow. So I'm just mixing up at the moment. Getting it a good scrape round the edges. You can quite often get dry clumps around the edges of the bucket, and it's always good to give the bucket a good scrape with the bucket trowel around the edges as you're mixing. Almost there. So now I gave all the tools a quick clean. And before we start, the hawk and trowel, that's the hawk there, I just give them a quick wet down. That helps slow down the suction ever so slightly of the bonding into the hawk. Do bear in mind when doing that though, the very first bit of bonding you put on the hawk may slide straight off. So just be a bit careful with that one. Using my amazing bucket scoop there to scoop out the gear. You can, some people use a spot board, which is basically like a table that you put the plaster onto. They can be fantastic, but when working in tight spaces, I find they're just a bit too bulky and they just get in the way. So I get on quite well with my bucket scoop. And I just use that to scoop out the gear. So you can see there, I'm starting at the top. And it's not easy to see because it's quite a small room, but there's lots of very large chunks missing where the tiles, when removed, have ripped off the backing plaster. So I'm basically filling all the deep holes and putting a tight coat of bonding over the wall. Well there, just making sure every section of the wall's got a nice tight covering of bonding. This is the first coat, and it's quite a tight coat, this is the repair work. So whilst yes, it's the deep sections it's filling, the majority is, I'm still using the surface of the wall as a rough guide. I'm not putting it on too thick yet, just want to get all those deep hollows filled. occasionally the suction on these walls can be incredibly high, which does can dry out the undercoat plaster as you're putting it on. I've primed it incredibly thoroughly and allowed it to dry, which has given me plenty of time to get over these walls. It really reduces the suction and increases the adhesion as well. There's a little electrical socket there that was a bit loose that I had sort of bed in. So that's the first coat on. I mixed up the bonding a little bit stiff, not too stiff, but a little bit on the stiffer side for the first coat, just so I could get those deep fill areas. And I'm now giving the bucket a good scrape. I'm just going to add ever so small bit of water just to wet it up ever so slightly. And then so I can now get the second coat, and it'll just glide over the first coat that I've just put on there. Now this second coat that I've put on pretty much straight away, the wall has been very well primed, so there isn't high suction, but it is pulling in a little bit still. So now this second coat that I put on straight away while it's still green, this is the coat that I will then rule off and make the wall sort of nice and flat. Put it on exactly the same way. I always start top to bottom with this undercoat plaster. It's very sticky, so I found you can work. I'm right-handed, so left to right works absolutely fine. Typically, when doing an undercoat plaster, you would work the opposite way to the top coat plaster. Certainly sand and cement render you would, but I find these modern plasters, they're so sticky, there's not really much in it. You'll notice this coat as well, seeing as all the deep fill's done, it's actually going on much quicker as well. You want a nice even coat with the trowel. When putting on the gear with the trowel, you do want quite a steep angle, sort of I'd say around a 22 degree angle with the trowel and the wall. So that trowel wants to be quite tight to the wall. So once this is done, I will then get a straight edge to then flatten the walls. Typically I will go vertically left to right, sort of a small section vertically, and then once I've done the entire wall sort of vertically left to right, I will then go horizontally, so from the floor to the ceiling. And today I'm using the speed skim there, this stiff speed skim. That works really with the undercoat plaster, especially bonding coat. It's a very sticky undercoat plaster. So I found this particular rule works incredibly well. Some metal ones can drag the gear a little bit, drag the plaster around a bit more than you would like. And again, when using this, you want a very tight angle. You shouldn't be taking much off the wall. Assuming the wall's fairly flat, which this one's pretty good, this wall. So you can see there, I've just gone left to right, right to left, done the horizontally, and now I'm going to go vertically, the floor all the way to the top. This particular wall's probably 4-ish square meters, if that, and it's used one full 25 kilogram bag of bonding. And you'll notice there I've just finished, and you can just see that's the entire waist, just that small bit off the hawk after doing the entire wall. You shouldn't really have much more. You don't want to be taking loads off. If you are taking a huge amount off the wall, then you've probably put it on too thick. There's also a few little chases in the other parts of the room. There's a chase there that's been repaired. The builder that's running the job has popped some plasterboard in there for me, but it doesn't hurt to pop a bit of bonding. That will add extra strength to the area, and then I will be adding scrim or fibre tape over the top as well as extra crack resistant measures. Now that wall will want about, I would say, 1 hour, because I got it on relatively quickly. That will want 1 hour before it then can be deviled up, or scratched up you might call it. So you basically give the key. So you can see now I'm fixing up the scrim. So while the bonding is still wet, I'm going to put scrim in the places I feel it needs. As bonding dries, it can be incredibly tough to get the scrim to stick. It will sort of dry a bit powdery, and it can be a real pain to try and stick scrim onto bonding after it's dried. So it's much better if you've got time to get the scrim where it needs to be while the bonding's still got a little bit of moisture, a bit wet. So that's what I'm doing there. And then I will also be putting scrim in the corner as well, vertically, ceiling to floor. And you can see with the scrim, I'm putting it on with my hands, but then I'm having to trowel it using my trowel to really bed it into the bonding. That will really help it stick and get out any potential kinks in the fiberglass, which will make it much easier to top coat plaster over. There's the length for the corner. You see, I'm just using the door frame as a guide. That's purely convenience. It's just I'm using 4-inch scrim, which I love. You can use 2-inch. 2-inch is probably standard, but I love using 4-inch. It's lovely and sticky, but it can be, if I was to just start in that corner, it's so sticky it could end up pulling some of the bonding off if I'm not careful. So it's much easier for me to get it cut to size and then press it into position. And then again, you'll see I'm just going over carefully with the trowel, just again pressing it into position. It's very important when doing your corner, when fixing scrim to corners, that you don't let the scrim curve, that it doesn't curl, so you don't get curved corners. So I've jumped forwards here about an hour, and I've been using a plastic float with a couple of screws in the end, just poking out about 1 mil. That's all you need. And then just going over the wall, as you can see there. It takes off any high spots, and it gives, more importantly, it gives the wall a really nice key. So the plaster, that will help, the plaster will really stick into that, and it'll just help key. It's a really good key. It will enhance the adhesive properties for the top coat plaster. Now, if I had time today, I could top coat this. It might even be slightly easier to apply the top coat plaster today as well. Unfortunately, I didn't quite have time today, so I will be top coating this another day, which is fine. It just means it'll probably need a bit of a PVA just to help hold back the suction a little. Whereas if I was to skim this immediately, like it's gone quite hard now, I will just whiz over it with the trowel to take off any high spots, and then that would be good to plaster. I wouldn't need to do any preparation. There's no more PVA would need to be added. I could just apply Thistle Multi-Finish straight on top of that. Always clean your tools straight after use, especially bonding coat or the undercoat plasters. They can go hard very quickly on your tools if you're not careful. See, I'm now getting my steel trowel out. I'm going to trim, just cut the ceiling line and peel off that tape now. At this stage, the bonding is firm to touch, but still has some moisture in the wall. So it's got a very, it feels almost hard, but with a little bit of moisture in the wall. And that's a good point to get over it. Give it a quick flatten with the trowel. Just allows me just to tidy up any little edges, corners, or a little bit I might have missed, whilst the bonding has still got a little bit of a play. Tomorrow this bonding will be literally rock hard. We're almost there. I should point out, even though it's a bathroom, this wall will be protected and not exposed to any water, so it's quite safe. Some builders, if it was in a wet zone, it would have been maybe sand and cement render, or a waterproof pre-mixed render, or maybe even the Jacko board like you see the window wall is. But as it is, that wall is going to be a decorative wall, and it will be protected. It's a dry wall.